Hi, everyone. I'm Elizabeth Canty, and this is another episode of Living Enlightened Every Day. And today, I have a very special guest, Darryl Anka. He is a writer, director, producer, filmmaker, and a channel. Many of you have very likely heard of the channeled entity Bashar. Well, we can thank Darryl Anka for that. In fact, Darryl has been channeling Bashar for over 40 years. Let's see what he has to say today. So today, as I said, we have Darryl Anka, and he channels an entity, Bashar. He is a physical ET, a friend from the future who has spoken for the past 40 years through channel Darryl Anka. He has brought through a wave of new information that clearly explains in detail how the universe works from that unique perspective of an extraterrestrial, and how each person creates the reality that they experience. Over the years, thousands of individuals have had the opportunity to apply these principles and see that they really work to change their lives and create the reality that they desire. It sounds kind of like, helping people to love their life and live their passion. So, hi, welcome, Darryl, and thank you so much for being here with me.
It is my pleasure. Thank you for providing this opportunity. I appreciate it.
Well, my son Max introduced me to Bashar probably 8 or 9 months ago, and I've been following him and you ever since.
Okay.
He's my son's 21 in college, and he sent me a TikTok video of
Mhm.
Bashar answering a question. And of course, I had to do my research to see what the heck he's watching and who he's listening to. And I found out all about you. I sent him back a text saying, hey, this guy seems pretty legit. He's been doing this channeling for a long time. And I love the answer that Bashar provided in that particular TikTok.
Okay. Great.
And then, yeah, just recently he sent me another TikTok. I think it was when he found out that I was interviewing you. And it appeared to be a young man um, asking you a question. And he was so sincere and he was so heartfelt. And he came up to Bashar and he asked, can you tell me everything I need to know?
A
And
small question. Yeah.
yeah, that's it. Just that, just
Just that.
everything.
25 words or less. Yeah.
That's right. That's right. But of course, what I loved and what is so endearing about Bashar, but also about you and the way you talk about Bashar's teaching, and Bashar was like right on it, is the follow your excitement 5-step formula.
Oh, the formula. Yes, of course. Okay. Yeah, because that usually is what it breaks down to. I know that a lot of times people have additional questions about that. But as Bashar said, we can talk for hours about the details more deeply so you have a deeper understanding of those 5 points, but there's nothing more than those 5 points really. It's that simple. And while we can clarify those points individually, there's no sense in overcomplicating it because it really is a simple instruction manual or a simple formula, and it's best to keep it simple but be clear and precise about it.
And would you go over that formula?
Yeah, the basic 5 steps are to act on whatever opportunity contains the most attractiveness, most excitement, most passion that comes to you that you're able to act on first before any other action. And then the second step is to take it as far as you can until you can take it no further, making sure that you're not the one that is dampening the excitement, that it's actually waning naturally, which means then look around for the next thing that contains more passion, more excitement than anything else, and start acting on that. The third step is to act on it with no insistence or assumption as to what the outcome ought to look like, because we really don't know what the ideal outcome really should be. Sometimes we can guess, but that's not always the case. The fourth step is to remain in a positive state no matter what manifests, even if what manifests is objectively something you don't prefer, but it's still there for a reason. So staying in a positive state will allow you to get a benefit out of whatever happens. And the fifth step is to constantly examine your own belief systems and let go of the fear-based or negative ones, or the ones that are not relevant for you, and clear that out so that the formula can work for you in a much more effortless and automatic way. Those are the five steps, and that's all there is to it. Now, they open up a list of different effects that will happen when you use those five steps. And he has often gone into that. For example, you experience an increase in synchronicity in your life becomes more effortless, so on and so forth. But those are the effects of actually just being willing to act on those five steps. And he says it really is like an instruction manual for how we're creating our reality anyway. So he's giving us an opportunity to understand how we're doing that so we can use it more consciously and therefore more likely to our advantage, instead of just sort of winging it unconsciously and never knowing exactly whether it's going to serve us or not.
Is, love your life and live your passion. And I find that so many people want to say, yeah, but there's this happening and there's that, I can't because of
Right.
this, I can't because of that. And when I heard, this wonderful formula, and when I heard you tell this young person, this is it. And I think one of the keys is the last step. The last
Mhm.
step is that self-inquiry. What is in my way?
That's where the buts come from. They all come from the belief system that we can't do it, or we've been taught it can only happen this way, or we're not worthy, or whatever the excuse is, whatever the belief is what stops us. And that's why it's so important from his perspective, from Bashar's perspective, to really let go of those beliefs, really have honest self-investigation to find out why we're holding on to those beliefs, because we don't do so without a reason. But we have to sort of bust that reason open. We have to understand that often the reasons don't really make sense as to why we're holding on to things that hold us back from being our true selves. So with that honest self-investigation, you can get to the root of those beliefs and why we hold on to them. And he has a whole explanation of how that mechanism works. But it really is as simple as figuring out what advantage are we getting out of holding on to things that don't really serve us, because we don't hold on to anything we don't think is giving us an advantage. And sometimes that simply means that in our mind, the alternative, even though we might think it would be something that should be more exciting for us, sometimes in people's minds, that alternative is actually scarier than where we're at. Even if we don't really like where we're at, sometimes it feels safer to stay where we're at and hold on to things that don't serve us, because we're more afraid of what will happen if we actually do move forward. So it's about getting in touch with those beliefs, asking ourselves why we hold on to them, and really understanding that we can let them go, that we're being told a story by those beliefs. We're not being told facts. It doesn't mean it's a fact that something worse will happen. We're just being told a story, because that's how beliefs perpetuate themselves. They have to perpetuate themselves in order for us to still keep experiencing a physical reality, because physical reality isn't real. It's just a projection of consciousness. So positive and negative beliefs have to tell us things that will allow us to not let them go. But negative beliefs are going to tell us things that are, in a sense, negative. That's the way they function. So a negative belief will say, if you let go of what you're doing now, as much as you may not enjoy it, if you do the alternate belief, if you go in the alternate direction, something scary and worse is going to happen and you may not be able to handle it. That's just a story. And once we understand it's just a story and not a fact, then we can come to terms with how the belief is doing nothing more than attempting to keep itself going and keep you from letting it go. And that's the only reason those things come up. In fact, the scarier it is, the more afraid you are to let it go, that usually means you're this close to letting it go, and the negative belief is trying that much harder to prevent you from letting it go. And so it's going to scare you that much more. So being really afraid of letting it go is actually a sign that you're very close to letting it go.
Oh, I love that. I'm
Yeah.
ready. I'm ready. It's really close. I can feel it. No, I get that. It's the story that we tell ourselves, and the
Mhm.
more we find ourselves clinging to the story, it's almost like then we can hear ourselves. It's like,
Yeah.
really, is that I'm going to keep telling this story over and over again, and then you finally have somebody that goes, really? And
Yeah.
you're like, well, what if I tell a different story? What if I jump into another reality for myself, another, even if it's another lie, at least it's an expanse,
It's something different.
expanded.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah. You mentioned when people, he talks to people and they say, well, yeah, but, and then they give, the reason why they can't move forward. And Bashar one time said something very funny. He said, it takes them a while in doing this to understand how we say things, how we phrase things. And he actually at one point early on in the channeling thought, yeah, but was one word because people said it so often. Yes, I'd like to do that. Yeah, but I can't, yeah, but I can't. So he just it took him a while to realize that that was actually two words because it comes out so quickly from us. Yeah, but, you know,
It's like I have a really good story about why that
yeah,
can't possibly happen, or why I can't follow my excitement, or why I can't, break out of this quote story. I really have an affinity towards the 5-step formula, because that's just one of the way I have been able to live a lot of my life, sometimes without knowing it,
hmm
without knowing that that's what I was doing. And some of the things that I would have said were kind of uh, could have been construed as negative circumstances in my childhood, or different things that they actually served me to be able to follow my passion.
that way. Yeah, if you use them that way, they can. And that's really kind of the whole point is to take what we're given and transform it in a way that allows us to move forward, which we always have the opportunity to do, unless we have a belief that we're stuck or we can't for one reason or another, like we just discussed. So you can always use every situation to move you forward in a positive way. You just have to open up your creative imagination and be willing to do so.
Well, and that's another thing, opening up our creative imagination. A lot of people I find out in the world, they're so busy doing. They're so busy doing the same thing over and over again. They're in that repetitive doingness,
Sure.
that they're not spending what would seem to someone like me, who may be the opposite, um, time in really finding that creative inspiration.
Mhm.
I feel like we don't have to know the answer to a problem. We just have to move into a space where the answer will appear.
Well, exactly. I mean, even Einstein said so. When a problem is created, it's created from a certain level, and you can't solve it from the same level. You have to move to another level where the solution lies. So, yeah, they have to be willing to sort of change their frequency to the vibration of the answer to get into a different state of being in order to find the answers to the situations that have come up in their lives. They can't find those answers by doing the same old thing over and over because you can only get what you're the frequency of. It's what you put out is what you get back. You can't get anything else. Bashar often uses the analogy of television to illustrate that point because you know that all the shows are playing there and you only get the show you're tuned to. You can't get another program until you change the channel. So you have to change the channel to get something else coming through. So it's just people have to be willing to be flexible enough to do that and know that if they do change their state of being, if they do change their frequency, some other information will then be available to them that they cannot get from the state of being that they're in now. This is just physics from Bashar's point of view.
And you find that working in your life? Do you see
Oh
that
yeah.
working? Yes.
Oh yeah. Yeah, I wouldn't keep doing this if it wasn't something that was practically applicable and if it's not something that actually changed the way I experience life. Because that's the thing that I always say about people, like, you don't have to believe that Bashar is real. It could be another aspect of my consciousness. I can't prove to you that this is a telepathic connection with an extraterrestrial consciousness. But what is provable is that the information he's delivering works, and it actually makes a difference, and it actually makes a change in how you experience your life. So on that level, what I appreciate the most about the information that comes through in the channeling is that it is a literal toolkit for how physical reality works, and it actually makes physical, practical changes in our life that you can see and feel and experience. And it's not left in the ethers, it's not a philosophical idea. He's literally telling us, look, this is a distillation for how physical reality is created by your consciousness. Here's the instruction manual. All you have to do is follow the instructions, and you'll get the advantages that you're looking for.
Yes, I love that. And I believe that about any teaching, and it could be from any culture,
Any
anywhere,
source.
anytime, any
Yeah.
place.
Any source. Yeah.
Yeah, any source. And what I know for me is in distilling or turning within with certain scriptures and certain prophets and sages. I find that perennial wisdom underneath, that perennial
Yeah.
truth. And
Yeah.
what I tell my son is there's one truth. He loves to, like, he won't say this about Bashar, but he'll say it about me. He's like, Mom, that's an ideology. And I said, no. He goes, that's your belief system. I said, no, there's a truth. There's one truth. There's a billion ways of saying it. There's a billion ways of experiencing it, but there
Right.
is one truth. And when we're really listening, I believe from that open heart, from that
Hmm.
non-contracted, non-fearful state, we can hear the truth regardless
Right.
of some of the words, or as you said about Bashar, whether we describe him as an ET or as this or as part of your consciousness or from your future. It doesn't matter if it's the truth and it's affecting us and allowing us to love our life and live our passion.
Absolutely.
You and Bashar have answered a lot of questions for people in your meetings and your interviews. What
Mhm.
would you say is the main part of the teachings or life that most people get stuck on?
Well, it is kind of what we've been talking about. They're looking for ways to really understand why they're here, what they can do about it that allows them to experience their life in a positive and creative way. Uh, in my estimation, they're really looking for how to be who they really are, their true selves, and transform the idea of limitation into freedom, negativity into positivity, so that they don't have to struggle to discover themselves. There are ways that you can discover yourself and learn your lessons without having to experience pain. Now, yes, some people may be so steeped in certain belief systems that there's almost no other way that they can really get through the idea without a little bit of struggle. But from Bashar's perspective, it's all about having challenges, but challenges don't have to be negative. Challenges are something that helps us grow, helps us think out of the box, helps us expand, helps us discover something new about ourselves, which is essentially what everyone is doing here. Is we are all the different ways that all that is has of experiencing itself, of expanding, because as Bashar says, the structure of existence never changes. It's our relationship to it, it's our experience of it, it's our perspective of it that changes. And that's how creation expands. It's not actually the structure that changes. So we're all here expressing a different point of view, a different way of approaching, a different kind of relationship to that which is, to all that is, to existence itself. And that's really what it's all about, is just who are you? Who are you at your core? Who are you at your true inner essential self? And are you willing to be that? Bashar uses the analogy of a puzzle picture. It's made up of all these little puzzle pieces.
Mm.
Each piece is made a certain shape. And if it stays that shape, it fits with all the other pieces that are also willing to be the shape that they were created to be. If we're trying to be something other than we are, if we're trying to be something we're not, then we're becoming a shape that doesn't fit. And if you don't fit, then you don't create the whole picture that supports all the pieces. So if you're just willing to be your true self, the puzzle piece shape you were created to be, then you fit with all the other pieces willing to do the same, and it creates the whole picture that supports all the pieces, and all the pieces support the whole, and everything works out perfectly.
Mm,
So you just have to be willing to be yourself. I mean, it goes back to the ancient phrase, know thyself,
mm,
right? We're all here to know ourselves in a different way, in a new way, to discover something new. I mean, that to me is what physical reality is all about. It allows us to experience process and change. In spirit, it's instantaneous. But here we get to experience the actual act of creativity, the act of creation.
mm.
And from that, forgetting who we are, through remembering who we are through a different path, we expand, we discover something new about ourselves, and that's how creation grows. That's how we grow as a soul.
Yeah, I had somebody ask me, a dear friend, and she said, "Why do we do that? Why do we forget? Why don't we just stay in," and I would call it love, or in this, this all-knowing, this all peaceful, this all, this place. But I got to say to her, "Close your eyes and remember the moment that your daughter was born."
Right.
I mean, that
You,
is
yeah, you
like
can
a
stay in love. You can stay in love. But the idea of not, in other words, nothing changes when things are timeless,
yes, yes.
right? There is no change. So it's the idea of physical reality is simply a focus of our consciousness that we're having while we're in spirit that allows us to experience the idea of growth and change. And that's just the mechanism that our consciousness uses. That's just the mechanism our soul uses. That's the way it's structured. So in spirit, Bashar says you have to remember you're in spirit all the time. That's your natural state. We don't ever actually leave the spirit realm.
Mm,
We are dreaming that we've left.
mm,
That's what physical reality is. We're using a device, a dream-like device within our souls that allows us to experience things in a certain way where we can discover something new and allow creation to expand. Because again, in a timeless state, nothing changes, nothing grows. You know everything. And so if you know everything, there's nothing that can be done extra. You
right.
have to forget in order to start discovering something from a new point of view. So the way Bashar's kind of explained it says, look at physical reality like this. Imagine yourself as the soul. Imagine you are a sphere of energy.
Mm,
And within that sphere of energy, there might be vibrations and ripples that represent different qualities of that entity, that soul. So the soul decides to have an experience to discover something new. So what it does is it takes some of those vibrations, some of those qualities, and it focuses them down into the center of the sphere. Doesn't mean the sphere is not still there,
mm,
but it focuses some aspects down into the center into a small crystallized form. That seed is us as a physical person, but it's within the soul. And when we die or when we expand our consciousness, then that little crystallized seed is softening and expanding again and taking on more of the qualities that exist in the total soul of that being. So it's a matter of just contracting and expanding within the soul. So it's actually more accurate to say that instead of the soul being in our body is in our soul. It's just a part of our soul that has, in a sense, been so focused, so crystallized that it creates this experience called physical reality. But we are still the soul that is dreaming this into being. That's the way he's explained it.
I love that analogy of the sphere and then crystallized. We could imagine that in what some people would call another lifetime, which is a whole nother conversation, but that it would be different things crystallizing, which makes
Right.
sense because we want to well, I do anyway, want to experience the myriad of things, not one thing or not one what we would call a lifetime. I just think this is a magnificent playground. I
It
just
is.
incredible.
It is. I like, a lot of people think, oh, Earth is so backwards. It's like a kindergarten class. But Bashar says, no, it's a master graduating class. You have to be a strong soul to choose to come here because it is so dense and you can get lost in darkness. But you have the power to transform that darkness into light. And that takes a powerful soul to do that. So rather than thinking of this as a kindergarten, he chooses to perceive us as a master graduating class.
I've heard Bashar talk on that, and instinctually, I just agree with that. I feel like this is, or the at least the opportunity is there. I think some people think that this is the school of hard knocks, and
It is a tough school. Yeah, it's a challenging school.
at the same time, if we allow ourselves to just see what's right in front of us, and I've lived in New York City and Boston, and I'm in Florida, and there's so much beauty
Oh, yeah.
in the sidewalk. I remember in LA, there's sidewalks that have like they just glitter like there's crushed diamonds in the sidewalks. And
Mm.
in Santa Monica, and I would just laugh. I'm just laughing. I'm running over the sidewalks. It's like there's diamonds in the sidewalk. Anybody notice this? And
Yeah.
there's crazy beauty everywhere, but sometimes we're focused on a problem or on we're caught mentally in that story to let go like little kids and to
Yeah.
play in the sand, and to play with your toes in the ocean, even
Mhm.
if you do have to go back to that problem in an hour or in
Mhm.
a day or whatever that is. It's like realizing what children have in those moments. They can be in utter poverty and be able to play with an old tire or a stick or whatever it is because we have that capability, that imagination, and that creativity. We
Mhm.
can imagine we're anywhere doing anything with anyone, and we can play at that.
Yeah, and this is where, again, it doesn't mean everyone has to be in poverty, but this is where Bashar's ideas of, look, you have to change your definition of your relationship to things so that you can open up opportunities for things to grow and expand and change. Whereas if you just get stuck in the idea of the victim, poor me, everything is so bad, then that's where you stay. You're reinforcing that reality instead of opening up to the magic that could be there that could actually lead you out of it into another state of being and another kind of experience or another level of life. So it really is, from his perspective, he said it's not about what happens. It's about what you do with what happens that makes the difference in your life because anything can be experienced positively or negatively. So they all serve double duty because they're just props. We're putting the meaning into them. There's no meaning in it on its own. We give life meaning.
Mm,
Life fundamentally, not in the negative sense, in the positive sense, life is fundamentally meaningless.
right?
We're allowed to give it the meaning, and it's the meaning we put into it that extracts the experience we get out of it. So that's how powerful we are. We have to learn that lesson in order to allow ourselves to be able to transform any situation, no matter what it is, into something that actually is more positive and benefits us.
Yes, yeah. Oh, I love that. Which, speaking of, I totally forgot. So now I have to get my phone out. My son wanted me to ask you
Oh,
two
yeah.
questions. Is suffering an inherent quality of being alive, of being human? Kills me that he asked this. And
No.
and there's a second part, which I'm going to ask at the same time. If suffering
Okay.
is inherent, should we try to mitigate it, or will this just cause more suffering? Should we let go of trying to change the way things are and just accept our environment as part of the human experience?
No, suffering is not inherent, but it is something that sometimes a soul can choose in order to be able to have something to overcome and transform so that it can grow. But again, I would render it into the idea of challenge as opposed to saying it has to be suffering. You don't have to suffer. You do have to have challenges.
Mhm.
So the idea is no, of course you can help wherever it is appropriate, wherever it's synchronistic, that you have the ability to offer someone a different point of view that could actually alleviate their suffering. By all means, share it with them if it seems appropriate. The other side of that coin is whatever they do with the information you share with them is none of your business. So
Right.
that's how you mitigate the idea is where appropriate, you help where you can. You are of service to humanity to show them the possibility that they could choose something more positive to alleviate their suffering. But if they're on a path where they insist that there's nothing else to do other than suffer, you have to let them do that because you don't know what their path is and you don't know what they're learning by experiencing that. Eventually, at some point, they might get it. Whether it's in this lifetime or not doesn't really matter because we are eternal beings. And therefore, we always have another chance to learn something and experience something differently.
Mm.
So, yes, of course, help. Yes, of course, try to alleviate suffering because that's part of the reason why we're here to be of service to others, to be their best selves, their true selves, their joyful selves. But some people will just simply continue to choose that, and there's not much you can do about it other than offer them the option that they may someday realize it's okay to act on. And that's how you do that. But no, suffering is not absolute.
Just reading into it a little bit because I know him so well, this idea that he and other young people can have this fatalistic view
Mhm.
of like what we're doing to the earth and the planet and that we're killing it, and he
Sure,
learned in school that there's a point of no return and that we are
absolutely.
hitting it. And so
Absolutely.
in some ways there's this fatalistic idea of, well, we can't do anything anyway, so let's just go live in a
Right.
van and go camping. And of course, I would say, I'm going to say what Bashar says. I would say if that excites you, if that's your passion, if that like moves you, even if it's moving you because of this interesting idea that you have about it, then by all means go explore that. And
Yeah.
I believe, and I would love to hear your ideas on this, that once, I don't know how many of us, when maybe we could say the 100th monkey or something, but
Mhm.
it's the idea that this problem is created. This problem does exist. We might say that a lot of people agree on and can see and participate in.
Mhm.
And as we expand and step into that place that we talked about of expanding our consciousness outside of the problem, then there's solutions that appear that we can't
Sure.
imagine at this point.
Exactly. Again, going to that other level to get the inspirations that are relevant for that level. So yeah, I'll say two things about that. Number one, the idea is, first of all, there are natural cycles on the earth. And some of the things that are happening with climate change are part of the natural cycle. So that is not necessarily something that we can change because we've agreed to be part of the reality where those cycles happen and we have to adapt to them. And that's part of the learning process. On the other side, mankind has exacerbated this with their technology, with pollution and stuff like that. Bashar says the things that are happening now in climate change probably wouldn't be as severe for another 100 to 200 years if we hadn't exacerbated. So we can do something about the part we've exacerbated. If we can't do anything about the part where the natural cycles are changing the climate, that's a different issue. And that may be too late to change, and we may not be able to change that. But we can do something about the part we're responsible for. That's the first thing I'll say about that.
Mhm.
And that's also part of our learning experience. It's like, okay, we've created this situation and we're not really happy about it. What can we do about it? That is never a waste of time
Yeah.
because you always learn something. Even if you're not actually ever able to do something about it, you may learn something that can be applied in a different area that will allow you to expand and continue to grow in a positive way. The second thing is what Bashar talks about. And this is something that people just really have to sort of wrap their minds around because it's a multidimensional concept. And that is you never change the earth you're on.
Yeah.
You have to understand the simultaneity of existence and that there are an infinite number of parallel versions of Earth that exist right now. You are never on the same Earth moment to moment to moment to moment, billions of times per second, literally, according to Bashar. So the changes that you make, the actions that you take that are representative of the changes that you would like to see in some version of Earth that you prefer,
Mhm.
that's what allows you to navigate in the direction of that version as you are going through these parallel reality versions of Earth. You are constantly shifting toward the versions more and more that are ultimately representative of the version of Earth that you prefer. It doesn't mean that you've changed the version you were on. The
Yeah.
people that are intent on destroying things will continue to experience an Earth that evolves into a destruction. That doesn't mean you have to experience the same thing. But taking the actions that are more representative of the kind of actions you would take were you a citizen of the version of Earth you say you prefer is what, again, acts as a living example to others that they can take those actions too, if they're willing, and navigate along with you to the versions of Earth that are more positive and constructive and creative and life-giving. If they don't choose to do that, they will experience the version of Earth that isn't.
Mm.
So that's the one thing that has to also be understood is the actions you take do make a difference, but they mostly make a difference in giving people the option as to what version of Earth they ultimately will experience, because these different parallel realities are splitting apart, and the farther away they get, the less likely it is you will experience what these people have chosen, and less likely it is that they will experience what you have chosen. So ultimately, you only experience what you have chosen. But right now, we can see it all because this is the time of choosing. Do you want to go this way? Do you want to go that way? Do you want to go this way? So now it's all mixed because it's giving us an opportunity to show others what they could choose,
Mhm.
but eventually there will be less and less of that, and you'll only be interacting with people on a version of Earth that are more or less similar to what it is you would prefer, as they will be acting on a version of Earth that is more or less similar to what they have chosen. So the bottom line to that second issue is there isn't just one Earth, and you never actually change the version of Earth that you're on at any given moment. You shift to another version again and again and again and again and again.
Oh, I love hearing the way you say that. Different people talk about it in different ways, but most of the time for me personally, it's hard to speak about because it's our language doesn't really allow for that in our normal environments.
Yeah, we need some new words. But again, it goes back to the idea that Bashar uses a lot of analogies,
Yeah.
and once again brings up the television analogy.
Oh yeah.
You know that when you're watching television, there are literally dozens of programs, if not hundreds of programs, playing at the same time,
Yeah.
but you only get the one you're tuned to. So
Mm.
if you decide to change the channel, you're now watching a different program. That doesn't mean the program you were watching a minute ago stops existing.
Yeah.
It may still be playing, but you're no longer receiving or experiencing that program. So he's basically saying reality is actually structured this way. All the programs, all the possible versions of Earth, all the possible versions of the universe are all playing simultaneously. You get the version you're tuned to. So taking the positive actions to demonstrate the way Earth could be in your actions, to demonstrate that to other people, is your way of changing the channel over
Mm.
and over and over again in the direction of the programs you would prefer to experience. That's the importance of actually taking an action and doing something about it, is it gives people a chance to see that other actions can be taken that will navigate them in the direction of a more creative and positive experience of an Earth that already exists that you are heading toward by taking those actions. That's your navigational tool.
There's so many people who want to say, and I've heard it many times, why should I recycle? Why should I buy electric? Because one person doesn't make a difference. But right. I used to say, at least in my mind, if you are one of a million people who believe that, you're making a difference.
Exactly.
But you're also making a difference in your reality.
Yes,
Like
you are.
you, if you are recycling, if you are consciously doing what you know to do or believe, even believe to do, because there's an intention behind that belief,
Sure.
you are affecting even yourself.
Of
If you
course.
believe you're taking care of the animals or the planet or this or that or your health or whatever it is, that's
Mhm.
the earth, as you say, or the frequency that you're tuned into is more loving, more kind, more compassionate towards
Yes.
everything and everyone.
And that's how you will experience it, no matter what's going on around you, because that's a different reality. Just because you can see realities that are vibrationally not compatible with yours doesn't mean you live in them.
Right.
Remember, this is like being in a bunch of different chambers that are separated by glass walls. I can see what's in those other chambers that people are choosing that I don't prefer, but they can't reach me because there's a glass wall in between us. So the idea is you are in your own reality. And on the most simplistic, practical level of why not do that? Because do you want to live in a dump in your own reality? So why not do that anyway? And do you want to experience pollution in your reality? Yes or no? So why not just at least do it in your reality and be the living example to others who may be curious to see, oh, how are you doing that? How are you staying so positive in the face of all the stuff that's going on in the world? Well, this is how and this is why. Because I'm acting as an example, because if I don't act as an example, who will? And if I don't act as an example, then no one else has a choice because they're not going to see an example of how else we could live. So there's a reason to do it for that anyway. Um, you know, it really comes down to just very simple choices about what you prefer to live like, how you prefer to be as a person, what kind of an example you want to give to others. That's why we're here, to be of service to humanity by providing different options, different ideas, different perspectives. So why not do that, just like you said, just to be who you are? If this is who you are, if this is who you say you prefer to be, act like it.
And
Act
take
like you're
your
already in the world that you want, you know?
yeah, taking your power. Okay, so there's a million people who don't do this or this or this, but I can. I mean, I physically,
Well,
financially, whatever,
yeah,
I can do this.
and that's the irony of that statement. Oh, well, I'm only one person. Think about our history. When has any major change in our culture not been started by one single person?
Yeah.
Really. It all
Mm,
comes down to that. It's very rare that a large collection of people start a new idea. It's usually from one person who has a new idea and eventually it catches on. So the idea of, well, I'm just one person is not an excuse because almost every major change in our society over thousands of years has been started by one single person. Look at what Einstein did, changed everything
yeah,
that we thought about the universe. One person
yeah,
with one equation. Come on. That's how powerful we can be. And those are people that are perfect examples of that it only can take one person to start a revolution.
yeah.
So be that person.
Be that person. And you know what? We look at people, Einstein, or those people that have changed without one idea. But
Mhm.
what's funny is they weren't that person before that idea. They
No,
were just a scientist or just this or just like
right.
the rest of us. They were just
But
being
they
themselves.
were open to
That's
being
right.
something. Yeah.
Yeah, they allowed themselves that opportunity of being in a
Yeah.
spacious place of,
Yeah.
of
And they
opening
and
new
they
ideas.
and they took the action that was representative of that space. Because as Bashar says, you can have all the thoughts and words and all that in the world, and it really doesn't make a difference because this is the experience of physical reality, and the language of physical reality is physical actions. In
Mm,
other words, you have to walk your talk to be talking.
yeah.
You have to walk it. You have to say it. And we know that because we always say, oh, don't listen to what people say, watch what they do. That's what they really mean. So it's actions that are the language of physical reality. And if we're not taking the actions, we're not having a conversation.
Wow.
Our voices are not heard.
Well, I wanted to share with you this, I don't know what to call it. I guess it was a movie that was playing in my vision out there. It was something about evolution, and it was this idea of one consciousness, spirit, God, mind, whatever we want to call it. And that idea of exploding into expansion, we, could call it the Big Bang or something like that. And there was this idea of it becoming itself as, and we would say maybe, the elements and then minerals, and then but to move on. And I'm watching this movie, like, it's just kind of
Mhm.
I'm on the phone going, I gotta go. You'd think it would just stop playing if I'm on, but no, it doesn't. I gotta go and see what this is. And it's just playing, and to become plants, or the next level, it leaves part of itself behind, and part of it evolves into this next. And then it was, those leave part of itself behind, and it's animals, but it's all one.
Mhm, mhm, mhm.
There's one thing happening, and then it's human, then there's humanity. There's that idea of evolution, humans evolving, but instead of this mechanized evolution that is in place now at this point in humanity, I'm seeing that there's a choice there to
Mhm.
continue. There's involution, a choice that we have to make to, instead of evolve, let's say physically or something, it's to know ourselves, to know the
Right.
truth of our being, and to see who we are as everything that we've left behind. And that's the wrong word, as
Yeah.
just everything. We are the plants, we are the animals, we are the earth, we're all the
Right.
galaxy.
Right. I am you from another point of view.
Exactly. And so then, but then I was seeing that humans to evolve, left themselves as animals, but then I'm seeing humans as animals, and then I'm
Mm.
seeing other humans as, these just beautiful, graceful, loving,
Mhm.
compassionate beings who can see.
Yeah. Well, we contain it all.
Yes, but when you said glass walls,
Mhm.
there was this animalistic idea of humans, killing and taking because there's not enough, and
See, that's
control.
not even an animalistic idea because
No,
animals
you're
think
right.
that.
You're right. You're right. It's the human who thinks about that and tells that story that there's not enough. And so I have to take from someone else. I have to get something from this place or this planet.
Belief in lack.
Black, yes. What I started to sense with it was there was going to be this separation of these humans that are
Mhm.
evolving and involving, making this choice. But I couldn't understand until I heard Bashar. I couldn't understand how that separation would happen. But what you just said about the glass walls, like they're living in a way that these other humans, I don't know what any other way to say it, or maybe hybrids, or I'm learning these new
Right.
terms, would 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 do. And yet it it's no different than leaving ourselves behind as algae or anything else. It's a natural
No, yeah.
progression until it.
Yeah. It goes on. It goes on and on and on forever.
I've never really been able to understand, because I saw this separation. I'm like, how could that be but parallel worlds? And is that what you said, like glass walls,
Like
or?
glass falls in between the reality, so you can see what someone else is doing, but that doesn't mean it affects you because it can't reach you through the glass wall. But you're given the choice to decide whether you want to match it and join that reality or whether you want to remain in your own reality that's different. And they have the same choice by seeing you and deciding, am I going to stay where I am and keep what I'm doing, or am I going to do some mirroring and mimicking of what that person is doing because I think that's a better choice. So it gives us the chance to look at each other and say, do I like that example? Do I want to mirror that example? Or do I want something else? That's why I mean it's the time of choosing. But eventually, as we evolve, as we move closer to who and what we truly are, which is part of our transformational evolution on Earth, then those walls become more opaque and
Oh,
we can no longer interact or see what other people are doing that is too dissimilar to us. And we wind up in a version of Earth where most of the people are sort of at least like-minded to enough of a degree that there is unity and harmony. I don't mean we all become homogenous,
Right, right.
because from Bashar's perspective, true harmony comes from the validation of all the differences between us
Mm,
that are true to ourselves. Like I said, again, the puzzle pieces. You have to be the puzzle piece shape you are. All the shapes are different shapes. That's okay. But as long as they all fit together, it all works out.
right.
So it's the question of, it's not that, it's fine to have a lot of similarities. The question is, are our differences compatible? That's what we're attempting to do, is make our differences compatible so that we all validate the unique aspects that we each are of all that is, of creation. So eventually he's saying, again, another analogy he uses, like all the different train tracks leaving the station, they're going off in different directions. Right now, I can still see the other train on the other tracks because they're still close. But
Mm,
my train is on a track that is eventually going to be so far apart, I can't see that train anymore. I can only see the people that are on the train with me. And I
mm,
can't get to that other train anymore because now it's too far away. It's too difficult to make that change.
yeah.
So that's why it's important to be on the train you really want to be on, because that cycle is happening. It's not something that we can slow down. That's a natural cycle, is to go into different phases, different states, different densities. And so you either stay in that density or go into other densities that are not compatible with this, or you move on to other densities that are more your liking. So it's kind of like ride the wave you want, be on the wave you want now in this time of choice, so that you can wind up where it is you actually prefer to be. And in the meantime, be of service and assistance to humanity by showing them that there are other ways to do things. Again, not that you need them to take it, because they have their own path.
Yeah.
None of your business what they do with that information. Bashar does this because this is who he is. I do this because this is what works for me. I know it can work for other people, but no one has to pay attention to me if they don't want to. That's their choice. I am fully capable of giving them their due and their choices. I don't know what path they're on. I don't know what they need to experience. I don't know what they need to learn. If they're willing to join in, great. The more the merrier. It's a bigger party. If they're not, I know you will find what you need somewhere else. I
Yeah.
have my life to live. You have your life to live. I cannot take responsibility for your life. I can only take responsibility for my life, but I can be responsible to you by being the best me I can be. And that gives you a choice to decide whether you find what I'm doing compatible or whether you don't. And that's all there is to it. That's all I can do.
Wow, it's beautiful and beautifully stated, because it's again that passion or that excitement that is within you that allows you to stay in that high involvement, active activities, doing what you do with low attachment to result. It's like I can't be attached to this result.
No, I mean, I wish the best for everyone, but I have to leave it up to them to decide what that is for them, because I can't make that decision for anyone else. I can only make it for me.
Well, you've been channeling Bashar for 40 years. Wow. And there's a whole nother episode on that I really want to know about how it was in the beginning, because I can't even imagine when people wouldn't talk about these things. They wouldn't, and they would not be very kind. And then the difference between now, where people get
Oh,
excited
sure.
about this, they're welcoming, they're engaging, they're curious.
40 years makes a difference.
40 years makes a difference.
Yeah.
Well, over the 40 years, what has stayed the same with Bashar's message to humanity, and what might have changed a little bit?
It's all about following the formula. More details have come out over the years, more different ways of looking at things, more exercises, more information, more deep investigations into how psychology works, how we create our reality, and things like that. But the basic message has stayed the same. You've got to follow your passion. You have to act on your passion. That's who you are, because he's basically saying, look, you have this soul, what your higher mind is, and you have this physical mind. The higher mind, your soul, communicates to your physical mind in terms of energy, because The soul is not physical, it's energy. The language it uses is an energy language. Our physical bodies interpret that energy language as the sensation of passion, love, creativity. And therefore, that's why it's important to act on it, because the soul is basically telling you through this vibration that you feel, this is who you really are.
Yeah.
This is this opportunity that has come to you that contains more excitement than anything else is the next step on your path. That's why it excites you so much. That's why it's more passionate than anything else. If you act on it, you're answering the soul and say, I heard you. Thank you for guiding me. If you don't act on it, the soul is not going to send any more opportunities to act on because you're not acting on what it's already sent you.
Wow.
That's how it communicates with you. That's how you start the discussion between your physical and your higher mind, is by being willing to follow its guidance, act on your passion, and then it can send you more opportunities to let that grow. So when you do that, you start that dialogue and it starts rolling and things open up and synchronicities abound and your life really becomes quite magical. I mean, things start happening that you go, oh, come on. Come on. I mean, it's impossible almost to predict or plan something like that. Things just happen out of the blue that are exactly what you need, exactly the moment you need them. And you just go, okay, this is Harry Potter stuff. This is, it's just life literally becomes an ecstatic explosion of synchronicity. You get what you need exactly when you need it. If you keep moving forward, it keeps happening. That's all there is to it.
Yes, I'm a big believer because I've been able to witness it in my life. And that's the other thing I love about you and Bashar is that no one's saying you should believe this.
No,
It's that if you try this, it might work. What do you got to
right. And when it works, it goes beyond belief, because now it's
right?
not like I don't believe it works. I know it works
Yes.
because I've experienced that it works. And now it gets ingrained in you as something that you simply know, oh, this is how it works. And you start using it. It becomes, I won't say second nature, it becomes first nature. You just start operating that way because you realize this actually makes a difference. It actually works. That's all there is to it. Prove it to yourself. Don't take my word for it.
Prove it to yourself. Yes, it's a provable formula.
It's a provable formula. That's what I like about it.
Yeah.
Because
Oh,
Bashar knows we're physical beings and he knows we need practical applications that actually create a result. Otherwise, what's the point? If it's not going to affect your life in any real practical way, what's the point?
that's what I say. What's the if this doesn't work, why would I do it? I just
Right.
go
So
do this other
that's
thing.
what I really, yeah, that's what I really appreciate about the way he delivers information is it, we've had these philosophies for thousands of years, but he doesn't leave it in the realm of philosophy, saying, look, this is a real practical physical thing. This is physics. This is energy. This is resonance. It's vibration. It's frequency. This is how it works. Prove it to yourself. Just do this and you'll see the results. That's all you have to do. It's that simple.
Not many people have taught us this. I didn't have parents that taught me
Exactly.
this. So
Exactly.
yeah, so we're used to things being a little unclear and we
Yes.
kept it that way, maybe a little shaken. And
Well,
so
yeah. And
we
we're told that if it becomes otherwise, something's wrong, so we don't do it.
and you
So
don't fit in or you're
it's
not
the belief system.
understood.
It's the
Yeah.
belief system that does this, and where that's why it's so important, and why the fifth step of the formula is honest self-investigation about why you believe what you believe. Because what you believe may be nothing more than a story, and you don't have to listen to that story anymore. So you're an adult. Tell yourself the story that you prefer, you know?
Well, and I say also that what I love about Shar's teaching is we know what passion feels like.
Mhm.
And when we start learning what fear and contraction feels like, we have a really good way of self-guidance. That's our
Yes,
self-guidance
exactly.
system. It's like I'm
Ex-
moving here and it doesn't
Exactly.
feel good. Okay.
Yeah.
You know.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, Bashar is basically saying fear in a way is your friend. It's a messenger telling you, look, you have a 100% energy. Fear and joy are the same energy, but they're being filtered through different beliefs. So
Mhm.
when you filter your energy through a positive belief, you feel expansion and you feel joy. And that's what lets you know that you're filtering your energy through a positive belief that's in alignment with who you are. When you feel fear, it's just telling you, hey, you are filtering your energy through a belief that's out of alignment with who you truly are. So I'm letting you know that so you can do something about it. So fear is your friend, telling you, like you said, it's a guide rail for you. It's a reflection. Hey, find out what that belief is and let it go. And then your energy will flow through a more positive belief and you'll feel better. It's really basic.
It's basic, but it ain't taught in kindergarten.
It ain't. It ain't. And that's what's changing now is the
Absolutely.
idea of really understanding how things work and really being able to use them as an instruction manual for, oh, this is how our psychology works. This is how our reality creation works. This is how physical reality works. Just use it the way it works. Don't fight it. Don't go against the grain. Don't swim upstream. Just go with the flow because everyone has a current in the ocean of creation. Your current knows exactly where you need to go. Just go with it.
Like it feels good to go with the flow.
Of course it does. And people, again, it's the definitions. Oh, if I surrender, I'm giving up control. No, surrender means you are surrendering to the control that's automatically built in. You don't have to control everything. You already do.
Oh,
So
I
you just
love
have
that.
to release to the control that's natural control and not artificial control, which is what the physical mind thinks it needs. It's an artificial system of control because we've been taught there's nothing else but this physical reality, and you have to manipulate and dominate everything in order to get things to work. That's exactly the opposite of the way things work because you're paying attention to too many of the details and trying to make them all fit instead of looking at the whole picture and letting all the details fall into place the way they were designed to. Much, much easier, much less stress, much less effort, and it works. Your choice.
Choose wisely.
Yes.
Well, I love this, Darryl. I am just so grateful for you being here and sharing your wisdom. And
Well,
you
thank
have
you.
such a beautiful presence.
Thank you. And I really appreciate opportunities like this that you're providing to share these ideas with people. So thank you for your service in doing that.
Oh, you're so welcome. And I just invite people, as I do at the end of these sessions, to be able to find you. And where would you like people to go for that?
They can, if they want anything that is recorded that Bashar has done, they can go to bashar.org, bashar.org. If they want to see what I'm up to, they can go to darrylanka.com, darrylanka.com. And one of my passions is that my wife and I are running an escape room in Los Angeles. And if they want to have some fun and go to an escape room, they can go to boggledescaperooms.com, Boggled, boggledescaperooms.com.
My son was very excited when I told him that because we go to LA a lot, so we're going to the escape room.
Awesome. I look
And,
forward to
and
seeing you there.
neither of us have ever been to an escape room, so
It's a fun experience. You don't ever have to have done it before. You'll have a good time. I guarantee it.
I'm so excited. And I love just, I know you've done films, I know you've done these things. You're just following your passion and enjoying life, loving life.
Absolutely. Filmmaking, writing books, doing the escape room. I have learned through what Bashar has said to simply follow the passion, and it has always supported me. So that's another fear I know a lot of people have. Well, can I act on my passion? Will it support me in life? Yes, if you expand your understanding of what support means, because it's not always just about money. There are many forms of support and many forms of abundance, and you have to let them all be equal in order to continue to be supported in acting on your passion. So it's about opening up that definition.
Thank you.
Thank you.